The war had lasted for 5 long years. The galaxy was full of fire and broken worlds. Humanity had fought bravely, but now almost everyone believed it was over. The Zelthar Empire, a powerful alien race, had destroyed Earth's defense fleets, burned cities, and left the planet in ruins. Across the stars, people whispered the same thing: humans are finished. But they were wrong. In the deep cold of space, far from any sun, a single human ship floated in silence. It was old, scarred, and half-broken. Its name was the Horizon. Inside, the air smelled of smoke and oil. Only a few hundred crew members were left alive. At the center of the bridge stood Admiral Rayner, a tall man with tired eyes. His uniform was torn, and his hands shook slightly as he looked at the screen in front of him. On that screen was the final message he had just recorded. "This is Admiral Rayner of the human fleet," he said in a calm voice. "To the Zelthar Empire, you think we are beaten. You think we will surrender. But you do not understand us. Humans do not surrender. Not while one heart still beats." He paused, then slowly added, "You chose this war. Now you will see what it means to fight humans who have nothing left to lose." When he finished, the bridge was silent. The only sound was the soft hum of the engines. Every crew member looked at him, not with fear, but with fire in their eyes. The message was short, but it was more powerful than any weapon. Rayner turned to his communications officer. "Send it," he ordered quietly. "Across every channel, every frequency. Let them all hear it." The officer nodded and pressed the command. The message began its long journey through the stars, traveling faster than light. Echoing into enemy space, somewhere on a distant planet, alien soldiers would soon hear a human voice, cold, steady, and full of promise. On the bridge, Rayner looked out the window at the black sky. Broken ships floated in the distance like ghosts. He could still see pieces of Earth's last fleet, ships that had sacrificed themselves to protect the evacuation of survivors. He remembered their names. Every one of them: Commander Hara of the Independence, Captain Miles of the Vigilant, even his own brother, lost when the Dauntless exploded near Mars. They were gone now. But their memory lived in him, and in the few who still stood by his side. He whispered softly, "You thought we'd die in silence. You thought wrong." Far away, deep in alien territory, Commander Vurek of the Zelthar fleet received the message. He was sitting in his throne-like command chair, his many eyes glowing as the translation finished playing. He laughed, a cold, cruel sound. "Typical humans," he said to his second-in-command. "Always so dramatic, always so emotional," his officer smiled. "Do they still have ships left to fight with?" Vurek shook his head. "A few broken machines and empty threats. They're already dead. They just don't know it yet." He turned to the window and looked out at his massive fleet. Thousands of shining alien warships stretching across the stars like a metal. "Ocean, prepare to move toward the Sol system," Vurek said. "We will crush their world completely. No one will ever speak the name human again." He thought the war was ending. He didn't realize it was just beginning. Back on the horizon, the humans began to move. The ship's engines came alive with a low roar. Rayner walked through the hallways, watching his crew at work. There were engineers, pilots, and soldiers, men and women who had lost everything but still refused to give up. He stopped beside Lieutenant Mara, a young woman repairing a damaged console. She looked up and said quietly, "Do you really think they'll hear us, sir?" Rayner smiled faintly. "Oh, they'll hear us, and when they do, they'll wish they hadn't." Outside the ship, space was silent, but inside, something had changed. It was not hope, not yet. It was something darker, something sharper. It was resolve. Humans were emotional, yes, but those emotions, love, anger, loss, made them unstoppable. The Zelthar could not understand that. They believed logic and fear would win wars. They didn't understand that humans fight hardest when they have already lost everything. As the horizon moved toward a hidden base near Jupiter, the stars around it flickered like dying embers. But those embers would soon become fire again. Before leaving the bridge, Rayner looked at Earth one last time through the screen. A small, broken, blue world. He whispered to himself, "Hold on, home. were coming back, and somewhere deep in space, his message continued to travel, bouncing between satellite stations and dead colonies, until the whole galaxy heard the words that would change everything. We do not surrender. The Zelthar flagship, Oblivion's Fang, floated like a black mountain in space. It was larger than any human city, covered in silver armor and glowing symbols. Inside, the alien commander, Vurek of the Zelthar Dominion, stood before a massive screen showing the human message. He played it again. We do not surrender, not while one heart still beats. The alien's many eyes blinked slowly. His mouth curled into something like a smile. Brave words, he said, but empty ones. The room was silent except for the low hum of alien machines. Dozens of Zelthar officers waited, afraid to speak. Vurek finally turned around, his long claws clicking against the metal floor. These humans still believe emotion is strength, he said, his voice deep and sharp. They do not understand power. Power is logic. Power is control. They have already lost both. A young officer stepped forward nervously. Commander, do we still move toward the Sol system? Vurek's eyes glowed. Of course. We will end this war. We will erase their world. And when it's done, their name will vanish from every record in the galaxy. The officer hesitated. But sir, they say humans fight hardest when they are cornered. Vurek cut him off with a hiss. Stories, myths. We have crushed stronger species than them. The humans are reckless, emotional, weak. Their courage is just desperation. Their unity is only fear. And fear fades. He looked back at the screen one last time. Let them send all their messages. Woods cannot stop fire. Hours later, the Oblivion's Fang moved forward. Behind it, thousands of Zelthar warships followed in perfect formation. Their engines glowed green like a rising storm. It was the largest invasion fleet ever seen, a sea of darkness stretching for light years. Each ship carried thousands of soldiers, weapons and machines built for one purpose, to finish humanity. The Zelthar commanders whispered among themselves as the fleet jumped through hyperspace. Some of them had fought humans before. They remembered the battles, brutal, chaotic, and costly. Humans don't retreat, one captain muttered. They run straight into death, another one laughed. Then let them. We'll give them plenty of it, but not everyone laughed. Deep inside the ranks, even among the Zelthar, there were small, quiet doubts. The humans had survived too much, lost too much, and yet still fought. No other species had ever done that. Meanwhile, in the human-controlled space near Jupiter, Admiral Rayner stood before a holographic map of the solar system. Small red dots filled the edge of the screen. The enemy fleet approaching. Lieutenant Mara stood beside him. They're coming straight for us, sir. Thousands of ships. No hesitation. Rayner nodded. They're proud. They think we're broken. He zoomed in on the map. Hidden in the shadows of Jupiter's moons were hundreds of small human ships, stealth frigates, rebuilt fighters, and prototypes made from salvaged alien tech. They have numbers, Rayner said, his voice calm. But we have something they'll never understand. Mara looked at him. What's that, sir? Rayner's eyes hardened. Heart. Back on the Oblivion's Fang, Commander Vurek watched the human system come into view. The small blue planet of Earth shimmered in the distance, half covered by dust and scars. He raised his hand. Open a channel to all ships. A deep voice echoed across the entire fleet. This is Commander Vurek. Today we end the human threat. They fought with passion, but passion burns out. Logic endures. Remember that. Show them mercy only when they kneel. Until then, destroy everything. The fleet roared in approval. Energy cannons charged. The Zelthar soldiers shouted in their guttural voices, eager for battle. Vurek smiled. Prepare orbital strike patterns. Target what's left of their cities. The sky outside began to glow green, but far below, hidden on the dark side of Jupiter, human eyes were watching. Dozens of ships floated silently with their power systems turned off to avoid detection. Their metal hulls were painted black, blending with space. In the command room of the hidden base, Commander Mara spoke softly into her headset. Enemy fleet entering Sol orbit. They don't know we're here. Rayner's voice replied through static. Good, let them think they've already won. Every pilot, engineer, and soldier waited quietly. Their hearts pounded. Their hands were steady. No one spoke of fear anymore. They had already lost too much for fear to matter. They waited, not for orders, but for the right moment. Vurek's fleet reached Mars. The red planet burned as the first Zelthar bombardments began. Dust and fire filled space. The commander watched with satisfaction. "It's beautiful," he said softly. "Soon, Earth will look the same." But just as he turned away, one of his officers shouted, "Commander!" Multiple signals, faint readings behind Jupiter. Vurek frowned. "Show me." The screen flickered. Tiny blips appeared, small, moving fast. Too organized to be debris. Too cold to be asteroids. He leaned forward. "What is this?" Then he realized. The blips were ships, human ships. Hundreds of them, and they were moving straight toward his fleet. Vurek's smile faded. "Impossible." The officer whispered, "They were hiding, sir." Vurek's claws dug into his chair. "Then let's see if they can hide from death." He raised his hand. "All ships, ready weapons?" In the shadows of space, Admiral Rayner looked at the timer on his screen. He whispered quietly, "They thought we would surrender." They were wrong. And with that, the human fleet came to life. Engines igniting like stars being born. The trap was set. The pride of the Zelthar was about to meet the fury of humanity. For hours, space was quiet. The Zelthar fleet continued its approach toward Earth, confident and proud. Their massive ships filled the void like a storm of steel and fire. But behind Jupiter, hidden in its endless shadow, the humans waited. Hundreds of warships floated in total silence, lights off, engines cold, systems dark. If you looked from far away, you would think they were just pieces of rock drifting through space. These ships were called the Silent Fleet. They were humanity's last hope. Built from broken ships, scavenged technology, and the will of survivors who refused to kneel. Each ship carried people who had lost everything, families, homes, entire worlds. But what they carried most was anger. Inside the command ship Horizon, Admiral Rayner stood in the middle of the bridge. The lights were dim, the air cold. Only the faint glow of the holographic map lit the faces of the crew. "Status?" he asked quietly. Lieutenant Mara looked at her screen. "All ships ready, sir. Weapons charged, engines cold. No enemy scans detected." Rayner nodded. He looked around the bridge, at faces young and old, tired and determined. These weren't just soldiers. They were survivors. He spoke softly, but his voice carried across the room. "The Zelthar think we're dead. They think we have no fight left. Let's prove them wrong." Outside, the silent ships floated between the shadows of Jupiter's moons. Their surfaces were dark and rough, painted to blend with space dust. Inside one of the smaller ships, Captain Jonas checked the power systems. His co-pilot, a woman named Eli, stared at the radar screen. "Never thought I'd see this day," Jonas whispered. Eli smiled sadly. "Yeah, fighting for a planet that's already half gone." Jonas looked out the small window at the distant sun. "We're not fighting for the planet," he said quietly. "We're fighting for who we are." Meanwhile, far ahead, the Zelthar flagship Oblivion's fang began to slow. The alien Commander Vurek was watching his screens closely. He still didn't believe the readings. Hundreds of human ships here in this dead system, hidden right under his nose. "Scan again," he ordered. It must be debris, but the scans came back the same. Hundreds of signals. Real ships. Vurek's eyes narrowed. "So, they had one last trick," he leaned forward. "Then we'll crush them first. Prepare strike formations." On the horizon, the tension grew heavier with every second. Lieutenant Mara turned to Rayner. "Sir, they've detected some of our ships. Their scanners are waking up." Rayner didn't move. His eyes stayed on the holographic map. "Then we move," he said. "Signal the fleet." Mara's voice trembled slightly. "Signal them with what message?" Rayner's voice hardened. "Tell them. It's time." Suddenly, across the darkness, hundreds of engines came alive. Blue light burst from the ships, cutting through the shadow of Jupiter. The silent fleet was silent no more. Every pilot, every gunner, every engineer felt the same rush, fear, hope and fury all at once. It was the moment they had trained for, prayed for and waited for. As the fleet broke formation, Thousands of weapons powered on. The first wave of human missiles streaked through space like falling stars. From the Zelthar bridge, alarms exploded. "Sir, massive energy signatures! They're firing!" Vurek's cold smile disappeared. "Fire back! All ships, defend the flagship." The first explosions lit up the dark. Dozens of Zelthar ships were torn apart before they could even turn. The humans had hit them from behind. From the blind side, their scanners couldn't read through Jupiter's radiation. The space around the planet became a battlefield of light. Red and blue beams crossed through the void. Missiles ripped through shields. Fire and metal filled the stars. Inside the horizon, the ship shook violently as it launched its own torpedoes. "Direct hit on their lead cruiser," shouted Mara. "Good," Rayna said calmly. "Keep the pressure. Don't stop until they run." But the Zelthar did not run. For every ship destroyed, 2 more appeared. Their fleet was enormous, stretching far into the black. Commander Vurek's eyes burned with fury. "Humans, you think you can outsmart us?" he hissed. "Let's see how long your courage lasts." He ordered his central cannons to fire. Green plasma tore through the battlefield, hitting 2 human ships. Both exploded instantly, their lights fading into nothing. On the horizon, everyone watched the burning remains on the screen. No one spoke. Rayna closed his eyes for a second. "They knew the risk," he said softly. "And they still went." Then his tone changed, cold, commanding. "We hold this line. Every ship, every gun. We hold." In the chaos, Captain Jonas's ship spun between explosions. "Eli, shields down to 20%. "I know," she shouted, pulling controls. "If we take one more hit, then we make it count," Jonas said, cutting her off. He aimed his ship straight toward a larger alien destroyer. "Lock missiles. Fire all!" The missiles struck the alien ship's reactor. The explosion was so bright, it lit the shadows of Jupiter. Jonas and Eli's ship was caught in the blast. Their last transmission came through static, "For Earth." Then silence. Back on the horizon, Rayna watched the data feed. One by one, red dots disappeared. Ships destroyed, but taking alien vessels with them. Mara whispered, "Sir, we've lost nearly 40 ships." Rayna looked up. "And they've lost over 200. "That's a start." He turned to his crew. "They thought we would surrender," he said, his voice steady and filled with fire. "Now they'll learn what humans do when we fight for home." The crew cheered, even as explosions rattled the hull. Outside, the silent fleet kept fighting, small, outnumbered, but burning brighter with every minute. As the battle raged on, the shadows of Jupiter flickered with endless flashes of light. In that storm of fire and steel, one truth became clear across the stars. Humanity was not finished. Humanity was fighting back. The battle around Jupiter burned like a second sun. Explosions flashed across the black sky, lighting the cold surface of the planet's storms. Thousands of ships, human and alien, fought in a deadly dance of fire and metal, but what the Zelthar didn't know was that everything they were seeing was part of a plan. Admiral Rayna stood on the bridge of the horizon, eyes fixed on the main screen. Each explosion, each movement of the human fleet, it was all according to strategy. "Enemy forces are pushing toward the left flank," shouted Lieutenant Mara. Rayna nodded calmly. "Good, let them. Make it look weak." His crew looked confused. Mara frowned. "Sir, you want them to break through?" "Yes," Rayna said quietly, "because that's where the trap begins." Far away, on the Zelthar flagship Oblivion's Fang, Commander Vurek leaned forward in his throne. He watched as human ships fell back, their formation breaking apart. He laughed, a low and cruel sound. "Pathetic. They're running. Shall we press forward, Commander?" asked his second-in-command. Vurek bared his sharp teeth. "Yes, chase them. Crush them. I want the human admiral's head on my wall." The alien fleet moved faster, engines glowing bright green as they dove into the fight. Hundreds of ships broke formation, hungry for blood. They didn't see what waited behind the curtain. As the Zelthar charged forward, the humans continued to fall back, pretending to be weak. Small ships spun and weaved through enemy fire, leading the aliens deeper into the battlefield. On the horizon, Rayna watched the enemy's movement like a hunter tracking prey. "They've taken the bait," Mara whispered. Rayna nodded. "Now we close the jaws." He turned to the communications officer. "Send the signal. All units phase 2. Across the battlefield, hidden ships came to life. From the shadows of Saturn's rings, from the far side of the asteroid belt, hundreds of human warships uncloaked at once. They had been waiting in silence, just like the first fleet behind Jupiter. Now they surrounded the Xelthar from all sides, the stars filled with light. Missiles and plasma beams shot from every direction. The Xelthar ships, caught between 2 human fleets, began to panic. "Commander," shouted an alien officer aboard Oblivion's Fang, "we're surrounded!" Vurek's many eyes widened. Surrounded? How? He turned to his screens, red warning lights flashing everywhere. Human ships were appearing behind them, above them, below them. He slammed his clawed hand on the control panel. "No, this is impossible." On the horizon, Rayna watched as the trap closed tight. He spoke through the comms, his voice echoing across every ship. "This is Admiral Rayna. All forces, hold your ground. No retreat. This is our home. Let them see the strength of humankind." The response came like thunder. Hundreds of human voices shouting, "For Earth!" The entire fleet moved together, coordinated and fearless. From the outside, it looked like a storm. Human ships weaving in and out, blasting through alien armor. Explosions lighting the void like lightning. Inside Oblivion's Fang, chaos erupted. "Shields failing. Rear defense destroyed. Human boarding craft detected." Vurek's fury burned brighter than the fires outside. "Fight them," he roared. "They are only humans. Kill them all!" But the humans didn't stop. On one side of the battle, Captain Mara's small ship Vigilance rammed into a Xelthar cruiser. Locking its magnetic claws onto the hull, Mara's voice came through static. "We're inside. Cover us!" Dozens of human soldiers rushed through airlocks, fighting hand-to-hand inside alien corridors. Sparks and blood filled the air, even against overwhelming numbers. The humans refused to back down. Back on the horizon, Rayna saw an opening. The Xelthar flagship was exposed. He turned to his weapons officer. "Prepare the rail cannon. Target the Oblivion's Fang." The officer hesitated. "Sir, that'll drain our main reactor." Rayna's voice was steady. "Then let's make it count." The ship's massive cannon began to charge. The deck rumbled. The lights flickered. Power at 90%. 95! Rayna's eyes locked on the target. "Fire!" A blinding beam of blue energy burst from the horizon. It tore through space, striking the alien flagship straight in the center. The impact was massive, the shockwave visible for miles. Half of Oblivion's Fang was blown apart, flames spilling into space. But it wasn't enough. Smoke filled the alien bridge. Commander Vurek rose from the wreckage, wounded but alive. He stared at the burning screen, his hatred unbroken. "You think this ends me?" he growled. "You think this ends the Xelthar?" He pointed to his officer. "Prepare the Omega weapon. If I fall, Earth burns with me." On the horizon, Rayna saw new energy readings. His heart sank. "They're activating something." Big Mara ran to his side. "What is it?" Rayna's face turned pale. "A planet killer. If they fire that, Earth is gone." The bridge went silent. Then Rayna straightened. "We stop them. Even if it costs us everything." He looked at the stars, his voice soft but firm. "This is what we were born for." Outside, the battlefield burned. The Xelthar fleet was broken but still dangerous. The humans had trapped them, yes, but victory would not come without sacrifice. In the distance, Earth's blue glow shimmered faintly, scarred but alive. Every human who saw it remembered why they fought. They would not surrender. Not now, not ever. The battlefield around Jupiter was chaos. Human ships and alien warships drifted through space like broken stars. Flames and wreckage filled the void, and every second felt like the end of the world. Inside the horizon, Admiral Rayna stood tall, staring at the main screen. His face was calm, but his eyes carried the weight of every life still fighting out there. "Status," he called out. Lieutenant Mara's voice was shaking as she read the reports. "2/3 of our fleet is gone, sir. But the Xelthar, they've lost almost everything. Their flagship is still active, and it's charging something. Rayner's gaze hardened. That weapon, it's meant for Earth. The bridge went silent. Every crew member turned to look at the distant blue planet glowing softly through the chaos. Their home. The reason. On the Zelthar flagship Oblivion's Fang, Commander Vurik stood surrounded by fire and smoke. The once perfect bridge was a ruin. Sparks fell from the ceiling, but he didn't care. His claws gripped the control console as he shouted, "Activate the Omega weapon."
"Target Earth!"
His second officer hesitated. "Commander, our systems are unstable. If we fire..." Vurik slammed his fist into the alien's chest, sending him crashing to the floor. "I said fire!" Outside, massive plates on the side of the alien ship opened. Energy crackled between them like lightning. The weapon began to glow, a swirling green storm growing brighter each second. Vurik's voice was filled with hate. "Let them watch their world burn." On the horizon, alarms screamed. "They're charging a planet destroyer," shouted Mara. "Time to fire?" 40 seconds. Rayner took a deep breath. His voice was steady, but everyone could feel the tension in the air. "Prepare every ship we have left. Focus fire on the flagship. We have one chance." Outside, what remained of the human fleet gathered. Ships with broken hulls, flickering engines, and damaged weapons all turned toward one target, Oblivion's Fang. Pilots spoke final messages to their families, to no one, to the stars. Then they flew forward. Missiles streaked through the black cutting trails of light. Cannons fired until they overheated, but the alien shields held strong. The Omega weapon kept charging. 30 seconds, cried Mara. Rayner clenched his fist. Not enough. Then he looked at his ship's status. The Horizon's reactor still had full power. He realized what he had to do. He turned to his crew. "Prepare for direct course." "We're going in." Mara's eyes widened. "Sir, that's suicide." "I know," Rayner said softly. "But if we don't stop that weapon, there won't be a home left for anyone." He took a step closer to her. "You have command now, Lieutenant. Get the crew to the escape pods." She shook her head. "No, I stay," Rayner smiled faintly. "Of course you do." He turned back to the controls. "All engines, full power. Blot course straight to the Exelthar flagship." The Horizon began to move. Slowly at first, then faster. Accelerating through the debris field, through burning wrecks and drifting bodies. The crew felt the engines roar beneath them. They knew what was happening, and none of them tried to stop it. One by one, they whispered words of farewell to their families, to Earth, to the stars. Mara looked at Rayner. "We won't make it back," he nodded. "That was never the plan." On the Oblivion's Fang, Commander Vurik saw the human ship coming. He laughed. "One ship? Do they think that will stop us?" But his laughter faded when his sensors began to scream. "Commander, the human ship's reactor is overloading." "What?" Vurik turned to the screen. The horizon was glowing bright blue, its engines burning hotter than ever. It was coming straight for him. "No," he whispered. "They wouldn't, but they would." Inside the horizon, the lights flickered red. Systems overheated. Warnings filled every screen. Rayner stood at the center of the bridge, looking out at the stars. His voice was quiet, but it carried through the entire ship. "This is Admiral Rayner, to all human forces. Keep fighting. Never stop. We may fall, but humanity will rise again." He looked down at his hand, a small photo of his family, burned and old. He placed it on the console. "For Earth," he whispered. The horizon hit full speed. The ship tore through enemy fire, its hull melting from the heat. The crew stayed silent, their eyes fixed forward, and then impact. A blinding light swallowed everything. The horizon rammed into Oblivion's Fang with the force of a small star. The explosion ripped through space, shaking the entire battlefield. For a moment, there was nothing but light. Then, silence. Minutes later, the light faded. Where the Zelthar flagship once stood, only debris remained. The Omega weapon was gone. On the remaining human ships, crews watched in awe. Tears filled their eyes. Mara's voice came softly through the comms. "The Admiral!" He did it. All across the fleet, soldiers bowed their heads. They had lost their leader. But he had saved their world. In the silence that followed, the human ships regrouped. The alien fleet, leaderless and broken, began to retreat. For the first time in years, the stars above Earth were free of enemy fire. As Earth's survivors looked up at the night sky, they saw streaks of light from the battle still fading. No one knew the name Horizon, but everyone felt the meaning of its sacrifice, and somewhere, deep in the cold dark, Admiral Rayner's words still echoed, "We do not surrender." The war was finally over. For the first time in years, the stars were quiet. No burning ships, no screams over the radio, only silence. Deep, endless silence. Above the blue glow of Earth, broken ships drifted like ancient ghosts. Half of them no longer had power. Some still had flickering lights, reminders of those who had fought until their very last breath. In one of those surviving ships, Lieutenant Mara sat on the bridge, staring at the empty captain's chair. The horizon was gone. So was Admiral Rayner, but his voice still echoed in her mind. We do not surrender. Earth had survived the unthinkable. The Zelthar Empire's final weapon had been destroyed. The last enemy ships were retreating beyond the solar system. Broken and terrified, human ships, what little was left of them, began returning home. When Mara's ship descended toward Earth, she could see the planet's scars. Cities burned, oceans were dark and filled with wreckage, but beneath the destruction, life was still there. Small lights glowing in the night, people rebuilding, survivors waiting for news that the war was truly over. Mara felt tears fall down her face, not of sadness, but of pride. The humans had done the impossible. Far away, in the center of the Zelthar Empire, Commander Vurek's image flickered on a giant hollow screen. He was gone, destroyed with his ship, but his final transmission had reached the High Council before his death. They had heard his last words. The humans. They are monsters made of hope. We thought they would break. We were wrong. Now, the alien leaders sat in silence, their eyes dim with fear. For the first time in thousands of years, they were not sure of their own power. One of them whispered, "If they survived that, what else are they capable of?" No one answered. Back on Earth, Mara walked through the ruins of New London. The sky was grey, filled with dust, but the people were rebuilding. Piece by piece, children played in the rubble. Soldiers carried supplies. Engineers worked on new towers using whatever metal they could find. It wasn't much, but it was home. She walked past a memorial, a wall of names carved into steel. Thousands of them. She stopped when she saw his name, Admiral Elias Rayner. Her hand touched the letters. "You did it," she whispered. "We all did." Later that night, the sky above Earth shimmered with streaks of light, pieces of the horizon burning up as they fell through the atmosphere. People stopped what they were doing and looked up. No one spoke. No one moved. They all knew what it meant. The ship that saved them was coming home one last time. A little boy asked, "Mom, what's that?" She smiled softly. A hero returning to the stars. Weeks passed. The United Earth Council reformed, sending messages across space. Humanity was alive, not just alive, but stronger than ever. A new era began. The Horizon Protocol was created, a promise that humanity would never again be caught unprepared. Every colony, every ship, every human world would stand together from now on, and at the center of it all was one phrase, written on every wall, every ship and every heart: "We do not surrender." Years later, deep in the colonies beyond Mars, a small child stood under a statue of Admiral Rayner. The bronze figure looked out at the stars, coat fluttering in the imagined wind. The boy asked his father, "Did he really save everyone?" The man smiled. "He didn't just save us. He reminded us who we are." The boy tilted his head. "What are we?" The father looked up at the statue, eyes shining with pride. "We're humans. We fight for each other, even when the universe says we can't win." Far beyond Earth, in the dark edge of space, wreckage still floated, pieces of ships from both sides. Among them, a small black box from the horizon drifted silently. Its power flickered once, then twice. A soft blue light blinked inside, and a voice, faint but clear, played one last time. If you are hearing this, then humanity has survived. Remember this, we never wanted war. But we will never kneel to tyranny. We are the voice of the lost, the strength of the broken, the fire that never dies. We are human. The message ended, and the black box drifted away into the endless stars. Centuries later, explorers from distant worlds would find it, that tiny relic of Earth's darkest war. They would listen to the message, and even though they didn't understand every word, they would feel it, the courage, the pain, the unstoppable will of a species that refused to die. And across the galaxy, those who once feared humans would whisper the same truth, the same words that started it all. They thought humans would surrender. They were wrong.